Today, we're sitting down on the porch with Katherine, a QHS member whose life is as heartwarming as a home-cooked meal. What paths did she follow to get to where she is today? Let's take a stroll down memory lane and see what's been cooking behind the scenes.
Hi, I'm Teresa, and this is Katherine. She was born and raised near Raleigh, North Carolina. I and her father are both from Ohio. All her grandparents are from Ohio, so when we go to visit family, we take trips back to Ohio. When Katherine was very little, just after about a year and a half, she started experiencing a lot of pain, and since she wasn't talking yet, we didn't know where it was coming from. She'd just scream and cry for hours, clawing at me. I took her to see a doctor, and he could not find any reason for her pain. So he said if she's still screaming after 3 hours, take her to the emergency room. We learned to use Tylenol to help her with her pain. And then after we were out somewhere together and I didn't have Tylenol with me, she was screaming, I decided to take her to the emergency room. That happened a couple of times, and both times they said she needed an enema, and that was all that they could tell us, is that she was constipated and needed an enema. I knew it had to be more than that. It couldn't just be an enema. Another thing that I was noticing is by the age after 2 years, she wasn't developing her words, even though she had about 50 at the age of 1. So I challenged her in the bathtub. She was taking a bath, and I just decided at that point, Katherine, will you just say da-da-da-da-da? And she couldn't say it, got very frustrated, and repeated words from a book that we had been reading. She said, don't wake the baby. And I knew at that point that she wasn't able to speak properly and that she probably had autism. And we did go and have her diagnosed at a developmental center for autism. After that, in my experience with the doctors, especially a gastroenterologist who told us just to feed her fruits that start with P to fix her problem, I knew I needed to see alternative doctors. So I sought out doctors in the Angel Network that were called DAN doctors, which meant Defeat Autism Now. And I started seeing a doctor within that network. She recommended a lot of supplements. So we had Katherine on a gluten-free, casein-free diet. We mixed up her supplements in a little cup and gave it to her in a syringe. Called it her yucky stuff, because that's what it was. And she was really good about taking it. She started feeling a lot better. She wasn't crying and screaming anymore. She was starting to interact better. We started her in preschool. So that was the start of good times, when we were reaping the benefits of the supplements and the diet, and just the everyday preschool. And then autism. She was in an autism classroom when she got a little bit older. We really enjoyed those times. We were doing really well. She was doing really well. We were all pretty happy. Then we moved to a more country setting. The school didn't have the autism classrooms there, so we started homeschooling, and Katherine did such a good job homeschooling. She was copying sentences. She was doing second grade level math. She was learning stuff, and she was doing a really good job. At that point, she was starting to approach puberty. So at about the age of 12, OCD started to kick in again, and she just couldn't seem to copy those sentences anymore. And then she started having tics, and then she started having seizures, and then she was one day drooling in her room in the dark and just sitting there doing nothing, and just, drool coming down her mouth. And I'm just wondering, I'm really concerned and wondering what's going on, and didn't know what to do. Very upset. Started talking to her autism doctor that we had at the time. Tried giving her certain supplements. And then one day she just woke up and she couldn't swallow anymore. And we went and saw a dentist. She wasn't swallowing a lot. She could swallow some, but not a lot. So we went and saw a dentist, and he did find a few cavities, but that wasn't the cause of her swallowing problems. We had an upper endoscopy done, and they did find some reflux scarring, but that wasn't the cause of her swallowing problems. She had a swallow evaluation. They said it looked fine to them. And then we went to a swallow therapist who said that she did have some swallowing issues, maybe from a stroke. She said it reminded her of her stroke patients. So I was just thinking, okay, seizure must have done something. I don't know. Also, she was diagnosed around this time with PANS, which is similar to PANDAS. PANS stands for Pediatric Acute Onset Neuropsychiatric Syndrome, which basically means she's got kind of an autoimmune condition with her brain. Her body's attacking her own brain because some type of infection in her system, either viral, bacterial, or both, are causing this autoimmune response. So that's how she's dealing with tics. When she lost the weight, she dropped out of puberty, and she actually was very, very frail and thin. We worked really, really hard to get her weight back up, but we could only get it up to about 70, and the doctor recommended that we get a G-tube for her. So that's what we did. We got a G-tube, and then she regressed again, and she doesn't even swallow her own saliva now. So everything goes in through the G-tube now. She put on weight, got back into the puberty, and things came back. The OCD came back, the tics came back, the insomnia is another one that came back. So we tried a couple of medications to help us sleep, but it only lasts for so long, and then it wears off and it doesn't really work anymore. So we've learned to use essential oils, certain types of supplements. We use something called Alpha Stim, which is a cranial electrotherapy stimulation to help with tics, and PEMF. But the latest, of course, we've been using is the QT Wave. And the QT Wave, she couldn't wear right off the bat because people with neurological issues like she had weren't able to handle it right off the bat. But I wore mine, and over time, her exposure to mine, I think, has improved her situation because she's calmer than she used to be. Her OCD is not quite as bad. She's not crying from her OCD as much. She stopped wetting the bed because overnight she would wet the bed when she was sleeping. She likes to sing to music in the car and talks once in a while more than she did. So I have seen improvements. But what we're really excited about is what's coming with this, the version 9 and our home healing system. So we're really looking forward to the healing that's going to come about, that's going to help her heal from these things that make life so difficult, right? Yeah. And so we're grateful that we have been led to QHS and that we're a part of QHS, and are really looking forward to a beautiful future.
Join us on the Prequel, where every story matters and every voice is heard. Because here at QHS, we're all about healing, learning, and growing together.